Alright guys, welcome back. We're going to be covering our modding for the secondary category and our melee category. So we're going to be using I think the Furus. We're going to use the Furus when I find where I put my Furus. Furus, where are you? There you are. We're going to be using the Furus as our example for that, and then for our melee, we will just be using the bow, or the bow prime, since I have the bow prime. So we'll get that going. So, going in on our pistols, it's basically the same thing. Same thing we've been doing. Um, we just have different names again. So we have Hornet Strike. We have Barrel Diffusion. And then we have Target Cracker, I think. Target Cracker and Pistol Gambit. Yeah, Pistol Gambit and then Target Cracker. So that's going to be our... Yeah, we'll move it out of that slot. Those are going to be our crit chance and our crit damage. And again, so we actually have similar, if not greater, damage on our pistol compared to like using Serration. And point blank on our shotguns and our rifles. Our multi-shot is higher as well. But our pistol gambit and our target cracker are still lower comparatively to a rifle, which makes sense. This is a pistol, right? Or a pistol-like object, since there are some not exactly pistols you can use as a pistol. They throw bombs and knives. Anyway, but again, principles apply. We're looking at damage, multi-shot, crit chance, and crit damage. And for a gun like this, actually, that doesn't work out well at all. The Furus is not really a critical chance weapon. It actually benefits from the fact that it's got an insanely high fire rate. 10 if you boost that up, what I had earlier. So for something like that, where it's meant to be a high fire rate, stacking statuses with each bullet, it's got a decently sized magazine. It's not great, but it's not terrible. This is something where a lethal torrent, which is a mod that you get from doing nightmare missions, is really helpful. It's really helpful in all pistol builds, really, because you get fire rate and multi-shot. It's a great 2-for-1 combo, great for damage and things like that. And then there's another one that's specifically good. Is Wings of Purity? Is it? I could just type it in. That'd be the smarter plan. So wins of Purity. That's why. Okay, so something that hasn't showed up yet, but show it now. So there are some weapons that are referred to as faction weapons, and that means that there is either a faction version of them, or they have little augment mods like this that turn them able to do special things. What's really cool about this one, and especially with the Furus, is it's one of the only things in the game that gives life steal. Like, legitimately, you get life steal from this. And Purity is just the new Loka specific thing, which in this case, Purity is gain affinity to do the new Loka thing. I think it's like 2,500 affinity or something like that. To fill the meter and trigger a 25-meter corrosive explosion, restoring 25 health and increasing max health by 25% for 30 seconds, which is really kind of cool with a frame that's made for survival, and the life steal's really cool and great too. So yeah, augment mods, best weapon augment mods do cool things to improve weapons that are kind of throwaway in a sense. Like the Furus is not a great weapon in most cases, except you can tell that by the Riven disposition. A Riven dispo that's up at 5 means that it's not a well-liked weapon. Riven dispo at 1 means it's super liked. So there are those things. Um, but basically, the weapon augments can make it easier for people to build builds that are more popular. Also, incarnate modes, which is a thing that have been on every gun I've showed so far, um, can improve that too by giving a bunch of abilities and stacking things. Unfortunately, that's kind of a spoiler thing because you have to have completed the new war in order for that content to be unlocked and really start working on those things. However, when you do unlock that stuff, game changer. Like incarnate modes make a lot of content easier if you can complete the quest and get it fully unlocked for that because of the insane amount of damage output that you can see just happen from weapons that feel mediocre without a lot of work, rivens, things like that. So, getting off my tangent that I just went on. Anyways, so using this setup of 3 works in just about any of your pistols. Like honestly, these 3 are probably more important even if you're building for crit or whatever because these are going to give you a solid setup for if you are adding, your elemental damage, you're going to make it work better for you. And 9 times out of 10, a faster fire rate is going to be more useful than just more damage because the faster you can put bullets down range is more helpful than if each of your bullets do a little bit more damage. It's the quantity over quality argument. AK7's famous quote. Is it famous? I'm getting sidetracked. Okay. Anyway, but looking at my advanced build here, super advanced, so advanced. It's not. But it works really well for what I've done here. I still have Hornet Strike. I have an upgraded version of Diffusion. I have Lethal Torrent. I'm working with my extreme status chance. So I'm benefiting from the fact that I have a ton of status here, and I'm going to be able to make it pay off. Now I have Pistol Pestilence and Jolt, which are the pistol versions to give me corrosive damage, and I have Scorch for that heat damage. And then I have the Wings of Purity to give me that lifesteal, which is really good. And I have Lethal Momentum because this build is about putting rounds down range as fast as possible. And so even though my fire rate hasn't been increased with Lethal Momentum, it's going to make it so that instead of me being able to easily watch the bullets that I'm shooting fly out, they're going to be more like a laser line in speed going out. Now, this also can mean that you might have trouble tracking your ammunition. However, usually you can get around that. And then I have secondary deadhead, obviously, because this is a gun that is looking to make headshot kills in order to activate its other things. And then I've got things that just increase base damage, give me more magazine capacity, and the other big reason here is kind of like with my Bratton, shots fired with a critical chance less than 40% have increased base critical damage. So I have this huge critical damage, low crit chance, but I don't care because if I do crit and the amount of rounds I'm putting down range will make it pay off. And that's something that you can build into your weapons that are more status weapons. If you have the ability to slip in either crit chance or crit damage, sometimes it's better to have crit damage instead of the crit chance because the crit chance might only increase it, from 5 to 12 or 10 to 20, whatever. But the crit damage is going to mean that your shots are double or tripling like easily in damage. So, you kind of have to think about that trade-off of does crits happening more often help me more or me getting bigger crits at a consistent rate help more. And there are various other Warframe and other choices you can make to make that also be effective. But moving on, we're going to melee weapons. And like I said, melee weapons, like Warframes, have an aura, or in this case, a stance mod that increases the base amount of mod space you have, or the total mod space you have. In this case, 10. I don't think many stances go above 10. because they're usually only 3 pips. So max is usually about 70. And again, they're the important thing about stances is that they actually change the way that you are using the melee. And I highly recommend going and looking on the wiki to see, because they should have little animations of what using each stance mod's thing looks like. So we're going to do Flailing Branch because it matches polarity. Matching polarity is still big. Go over to combos. So Rising Falls says hit E while moving forward, it looks like. No, just double tap E. So what that is on your first attack of pressing E, you're going to have 300% attack of impact, and then plus 200% attack. And then when you press E that second time in quick succession, you're going to get 400% attack with a downward smack, which may have a chance to knock your enemy down. So a battering thread is moving forward, moving forward, moving forward. So yeah, there are different things, and like I said, they have the animations to go with it on the wiki. It's nice to see how they work because sometimes um, certain attack animations with certain weapons will give you something. I think it's called momentum. It's part of the old system, from what I understand, of how melee used to work long time ago, way long before I started playing. And what momentum does is it means that your attack can't be broken by an Arson Eximus or anything else, that would, or a the heavy gunner, doing his little stamp thing on the ground, or the Moa Shockwave. Because you have momentum, you can't be just knocked out of that. So it's a way to kind of move through those effects. Can be really useful. Most momentum is on heavy blades, but some other weapons in their attack they have momentum, which is kind of a trial error thing. I don't know if it mentions it. Anywho's it. So kind of here, it's a little less specific about building for crit, building for status, because there are mods that can make use of not caring. But they're kind of hard to get. One of those is Blood Rush, which gives you critical chance with your combo multiplier. Your combo multiplier builds every time you successfully hit an enemy, and depending on how many hits are in that, that's where kind of your combos come from, is how many stacks you get. And certain weapons build combo stacks better. The other thing that happens is, depending on your combo count, which does it say? Anywho, your heavy damage, the amount your heavy damage does is more depending on how your combo works. There are other abilities that depend on combo counter, depending on what weapon you're using. Or like Blood Rush and the status chance version, Weeping Wounds. But I think they're both 40% chance with combo multiplier. So that's each stack. You can have a maximum of 12 stacks, unless you're using a weapon that can't have 12 stacks, in which you can't have 12 stacks. I don't know what they are off the top of my head. But that wasn't the right one. Oh, that's what it is. It's pressure point. So, basic damage mod, pressure point, kind of like we were going with before. If you're doing any build really with melee in the beginning, pressure point's going to be in your build. Pardon me. Reach is kind of another important one to have in your build, because this makes it easier to hit enemies before they get close to you. This can be important in cases of just fighting off the melee enemies, but also for taking out things like a nullifier's bubble before you get close enough to them for it to be a pain. and a number of other things. But reach is super helpful. I would say it's a really important one to start with. One of the other ones is Berserker Fury, due to the way it works. So Berserker Fury, it's on melee kill. You get plus 35% attack speed for 10 seconds, stacks up to twice. So you can get up plus 70 for 10 seconds. And this is really one of the great mods to use because it's conditional, yes, but at the same time you can get a bigger stack of attack speed than any other attack speed mod. Like, let me show you. So those are wind up speed. That's not it. Quickening can give you 40% attack speed. Magnetic Rush, which is a nice one, will give you 20%. Standard Fury will give you 30%, and Prime Fury, I think, gives 55%. Do I even have Prime Fury? Okay. Well, what would a max one give me? 60. Okay. So Prime Fury would give me 60. So it gives the most out of anyone, and you only have to kill 2 people to get to that speed. Which, if you're melee killing people, you will get there quick. So these 3 are a really nice basis. Starting out, another one of the nightmare missions ones is Drifting Contact, because it gives you extra combo duration, which is nice for if you are playing a build that needs combo duration. It's also cheap, cost-wise, put into your build, gets more status chance, and then after that, again, whatever status you can throw at this to make sense. Generally, again, like, I guess there's, I'll cover that in a moment because it's related to stats. So generally, again, I like just the basic 4 60/60 mods that you can get, mix and match. I generally run on my blunt weapons, so on staves and like the nunchucks. I will generally run corrosive. So I'll run corrosive damage, and then heat, and then one I've had fun putting on is Magnetic Rush for the extra attack speed. And that's generally my lineup for most of them. Like basic lineup for most of the weapons like that. If I'm talking about a bladed weapon, I will swap out, instead of doing Voltaic Strike, I will do Vicious Frost instead to get viral damage. Because viral damage increases damage to health up to 350% in multiple stacks for a short duration. And almost all of the bladed weapons do slash damage. So pushing my status amount up, and then just wailing on people will get that slash proc going off at the same time as a viral proc, which can just shred enemy health very easily. Another thing that's related to status are 2 mods that are really cool. Not seen a lot because there are so many Warframes that heal themselves. However, there are some missions where you can't use Warframe abilities, or your Warframe doesn't have that. So Healing Return is a great one to put on a status-built weapon because you restore 10 health per status type affecting the target, which also plays off of Condition Overload, second one, because you get extra melee damage per status type affecting the target. And so a lot of builds that are made to go deep in, like super long using melee, tend to use Condition Overload because you can stack maybe 2 dozen statics. However many statuses you could think of stack on a target, you can stack them all on a heavily armored target at level 500. Which means you would be getting 12 times, I think they capped it now, but you'd be getting a bunch of extra melee damage per status. So I might have to look on the wiki to make sure that that's not capped again. Because they've gone back and forth on capping it and uncapping it. Depends on if we're in a capped it cycle. Anyways, still super useful for doing far out instead of using something like prime pressure point. Because you know, with 3 status effects on someone, you're seeing 180, no, 240 versus, you know, 150 flat. And obviously you can mix and match. And if you're like talking about wanting crit damage, Gladiator Might is great for getting crit damage and crit chance, True Steel, or the upgraded one you can get from doing the Sacrifice quest, which is Sacrificial Steel, and then there's a Galvanized Steel. Do I have a Galvanized Steel? I could just type it in the search bar. I should have typed it in the search bar. Aha, here we go. So this does the same thing on melee kill. It gives crit damage. So this is a case of a harder to get mod being really useful as doing the job of 2 things at once. So you could replace having both Gladiator Might and True Steel with a Galvanized Steel. So that's kind of a cool thing that, again, later down the line, but it's something that you could work into your build theory. So I think that's a decent thing. Melee Arcane adapters they only came out like a year and a half ago. Not something I've played around with a lot. They're really powerful, but definitely not a beginner thing. I would highly recommend if you want to know more about that. I'm sure some big streamer has done a video explaining that, and I just don't know enough at this point to really talk on it. Anyways, I hope this has helped someone. Maybe just get some theories about, you know, modding their melee. Like I said, these 3 get you started, and then you just kind of go. Obviously, having a stance mod is also useful. Stance mods tend to be fairly easy to get, at least the lower ranked ones. And you can always use a forma to modify your stance polarity if you don't like the stances you have available here, or B, don't have access to it. However, also you can just have it be one that's the wrong polarity. The downside here is you'll only get 4 instead of 10, but that's 4 more polarity than you had before, so kind of just deal with what you have. Anyway, that's going to be all for this one. I hope this has helped someone, and everyone just have a fantastic and wonderful day. Thank you. Bye.